On July 26, 1990, the President of the United States signed into law the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. The Americans with Disabilities Act states that no person can be discriminated against because of physical or mental impairments. The ADA also states that reasonable accommodations must be made in areas of public buildings and accommodations, telecommunications, and public transportation. This is a scene that is becoming more and more familiar across America. USA Today reports that 1 out of every 6 Americans is disabled. Citizens with disabilities are gaining access to more of their country. Businesses, hotels, and restaurants are becoming more accessible. Opportunities that most of us have taken for granted for many years are now available to millions more. One area where the ADA is having a large impact is public transportation. In the past, individuals had to rely primarily on their own personal transportation, or elderly and disabled services, or special transportation services provided by local government. These services played an important role in the lives of many individuals who have disabilities, but it was not possible to provide services to all of the numbers of people who needed them. The ADA has prompted local governments to provide access to a wider variety of public transportation. This will give an even larger number of people an opportunity to be mobile, have more flexible schedules, and live more independently. In the past, few of the main bus routes were accessible to wheelchairs or riders who were mobility impaired. With the signing of the ADA, all buses ordered or leased after August 26, 1990 must be accessible. So how does all this work? Are these new rules causing hardships on the rest of us? Not really. Like many other tasks performed every day, working with people with disabilities becomes easier the more often you do it. There are many different kinds of disabilities: blindness and visual impairment, hearing and speech impairment, cognitive disabilities, and mobility impairment. Each of these groups have different characteristics, needs, and different strengths. And they all want what every other rider wants from public transportation: to get from one place to another with the greatest speed, the least cost, and the most convenience. To help them achieve this goal, you only have to do one thing: treat riders with disabilities just like you would every other rider, and just like you would like to be treated, with respect. There are several things to remember when working with a rider who has a disability. Number 1, treat that rider as an individual. He or she is not a cripple, a blind person, a deaf person, an epileptic, or a diabetic. Those are the disabilities that they have, not who they are. If you know a rider by name, use it. If you have a rider who has been on your route before, introduce yourself. Second, when you are helping a rider in a wheelchair, always ask before you touch the wheelchair. Many people who use wheelchairs feel that their chair is a part of their personal space. It's a courtesy to ask how you can help before you start. As implementation of the ADA becomes more complete, public transportation will accommodate more and more first-time riders. And with that will come first-time anxiety.
When I first rode the bus, sitting on the bus stop, people gave me strange looks. It's not often that you see a person in a wheelchair on a public bus lane, and I think it's a new concept to most people. I was kind of nervous the first time I used the lift. I worried about time constraints, and could the bus driver get me locked down without being late for his next stop?
Most disabilities are easy to spot and easy to identify. Some disabilities are hidden. That's another reason to treat all riders with respect. When you approach a stop and see a person with a white cane, that means the person has a visual impairment. When a rider has a visual impairment, he or she may ask you which bus they are boarding and then tell you which stop they want. Write it down. You are their link to getting to their destination. A person with a visual impairment may ask you if the fare they have is correct. You'll find that most of the time they know exactly how much money they have. You may also want to point out where the nearest empty seat is by giving clear, precise directions. As you drive, call the stops clearly so the rider can hear each one.
12th and Ashwood. That's my stop. Yes, ma'am.
The rider depends on your voice to reach their stop. At the passenger's stop, make sure the rider knows that this is their destination and make sure they know to get off.
Some of the things that the driver could do to help a visually impaired person on the bus, maybe help to find the fare box, to help to find the seat, help to get the packages on, and call the stops as he goes along. Because that's one thing we worry about, missing our stop and not knowing where we are when we get off the bus.
Other riders with disabilities are just as easy to work with. When a passenger gets on who is hearing impaired, he or she may need to write you a note to tell you any information about their destination. It's smart to have a pencil and notepad handy just for this. When answering a person with a hearing impairment, write down the information for them to read. Or if you speak to them, make sure they can see your face and mouth. They may be able to read lips. Again, write down their stop. As you drive your route, keep their stop in mind. And remember, they can't hear you call the stops. So it's your job to personally tell them when their stop comes up. Above all, stay friendly and courteous. This is not a deaf person, but a human being who is having a much quieter ride.
Yes, I didn't understand how much to pay for the trip my first time. I tried to show the driver what he needed to know, but he didn't read sign. I know I can't expect them all to learn sign, but I'm sure that we can provide them with a fingerspelling card. I decided it would be quicker to pull out pen and paper and communicate by writing. The driver did indeed have pen and paper handy. He said it was provided for just this kind of thing. He also had a card with the American Sign Language alphabet and numbers on it. What was even greater was that he had actually been learning the alphabet, and when I slowed my fingerspelling down, the driver could read some of it. I still had to write, though, because he didn't have anyone to practice reading it with. I was quite impressed and pleased that he knew what he did of the alphabet. Anyway, he asked me where I was getting off and offered to let me know when the bus got there. From that point on, I have been happy to use the bus service because that driver was really willing to work with me.
Not all mobility impaired men and women are in wheelchairs. Some may walk with the aid of crutches or a cane. As this person approaches the bus, ask them if they would like for you to kneel the bus. This takes only a second and may be a great aid in helping them board. For some riders, it may be more helpful for them to ride the lift. Explain to them how the lift works and tell them to hang on. Many riders may think they are not eligible or that it is inappropriate for them to use the lift or for you to kneel the bus for them.
May I use the lift to get off, please? Yes, ma'am. Sure.
By offering these services, you are telling the rider that you and the transit system want to help in every way possible.
The kneeler wasn't working properly, and I nearly fell getting onto the bus, but when the driver saw that I was having trouble, he just took my arm and steadied me, and I was fine. I really appreciate the concern that he showed towards me and the help that he gave me.
Communicating with riders who have a speech impairment may be an especially frustrating experience for you and for them. Patience is the rule. A person with a speech impairment may be just as frustrated as you are that he or she is having trouble communicating with you. Again, it is helpful if you have a notepad and a pencil with you. If you cannot understand what the person is saying, have them write you a note. Many people with speech impairments use an ACD, an augmented communication device. This is a computer-like device that is programmed to speak for the person using it. It's a good idea to write down the person's destination, so when you are close, you can alert them and they won't miss their stop.
I relied on elderly and disabled services, but I could not get my rides when I need them, and my job is out of the demand response area, so I need to learn to use the regular bus service. I am really glad that the main buses are lift-equipped now.
The bottom line when dealing with all riders is to let common sense rule. If a situation arises that you don't know how to handle, call your supervisor. Being friendly and acting courteous to all of your passengers, treating them like you would like to be treated, is what is most important.